Welcome to Contours of Our Soul and Beyond. Today I'll talk about how I became an author. So people sometimes ask me, when did you decide to become an author? And the truth is, I don't think there was a single moment. It wasn't one decision. It was a series of quiet moments that slowly found each other. I've always believed that stories don't begin on paper, they begin in the heart. They begin with curiosity, with asking questions that don't always have answers. Questions like, why are we here? What gives life meaning? What happens when love is tested? How do we find ourselves after we've been lost? And I think we all go through that. Those were the questions that stayed with me long before I even thought about it, even writing this novel. So writing wasn't simply creating a story. It became a way of understanding life, especially when my dad passed away when I was 4 years old, and writing was a way for me to breathe. As I mentioned before, my writing started as letters to my dad, slowly transformed into poetry writing, and now a novel. This is my 5th book. It's not my first one. It's my 5th book. My other 4 were poetry. There's a big, many years between my 4th book and the 5th one. So the base of my writing started as missing my dad, but it eventually turned into more emotional and more romantic style of writing. I wanted to write something that everybody could relate to. I've always been fascinated with people, not by what they do, but by who they are beneath everything in the world, like in the world that we can't see. What are they carrying? What are they hoping for? What are they afraid of to say out loud? What invisible experience shapes them? Every person is an unwritten novel. We only ever read few chapters. The rest remains hidden. So I think that's where Contours of Our Soul was born, not from a desire to write a novel, but a desire to explore what it means to be human, to ask questions about love, identity, loss, and the extraordinary resilience of the human spirit. So some people think that authors create stories. I honestly think stories create authors, because every page we write, or I write, it challenged me as much as I hope it challenges the reader. It asked me to become more patient, more compassionate, more willing to sit with uncertainty. There's days where, you sit down to write and the page is all blank. So there were moments when I thought I knew exactly where the story was going, and then the character surprised me. So the story asked different questions. It invited me to see life from another perspective. In many ways, writing became a conversation, not just with the characters, but with myself. I think that's one of the gifts of storytelling. And if you are an author or any type of storytelling, it doesn't simply entertain us, it reveals us. As I wrote Luna's journey, I found myself reflecting on my own, the fears we carry, the dreams we quietly protect, the moments that changed us forever, the search for meaning that never really ends, and I realized something. Writing isn't about having all the answers. It never is. It's about having the courage to ask honest questions. Some of the most meaningful conversations begin with the words, I don't know. But let's explore it together. That's what becoming an author has has come to mean for me. It isn't about telling people what to think. It's totally not that. It's about creating a space where readers can recognize themselves, where someone can read a page and quietly think. I felt that too, because that's what stories do. They remind us that we're not alone. Across different countries, cultures, generations, we discovered that the human heart speaks a language that all of us understand. And that's love, that's loss, that's hope, that's forgiveness. The longing to belong, the desire to become the truest version of ourselves. So those are universal things. So when people ask me how I became an author, I don't think I have that answer. Is that I decided to write a book. That's not an answer, but yeah, it just happened. I think I simply listened to the questions that refused to leave me alone. I followed curiosity. I trusted my imagination. Like I said, I've always been writing since I can remember, published or not published. Since I can remember, I was writing, and as I said, it started as letters to my dad. And somewhere along the way, those quiet questions became Contours of Our Soul. If there's one thing I've learned through this journey, or all my writing journeys, every one of us has a story worth telling, not because our lives are perfect or extraordinary, but because we're real. And perhaps that's the role of an author, not to stand alone, stand above the reader with all the answers, but to walk beside them, turning the pages together, reminding that every life, every joy, every wound, every dream is a part of a story still to be written. And I think that's a beautiful thought. None of us are finished. Every new day is another blank page. Every choice is another sentence. Every act of kindness is another line of a story of who we are, who we're becoming. For me, becoming an author wasn't the destination. It was simply another chapter in my own journey of discovering the contours of our soul. So I'm really proud of Contours of Our Soul, and I becoming an author. How I became an author, there's no real explanation, but that's one of the questions I answered when people ask me. Thank you for joining me today.